This is FE Peer Review. The date is still March the 23rd, 2025. This is part 2 of the previous video I did on Bobby Shafto's observation of a ship coming into Tacoma. And this is a response to B flat. B flat made a response to my earlier video. He addressed it to both me and Bobby Shafto. And I'm giving him a quick response as well, because he brought up some points that I think are easiest to illustrate with pictures. So in the first part of B flat's video, he took this structure here at Point Robinson and looked into it a little more on Google Earth and pointed out that this part is the house, this house here, and this part is a separate structure in front of the house, which is right down here. And then he tried to identify various things that we see around. Granted, you know, the imagery is pretty fuzzy, so it's a little difficult, but all in all, I have to say I agree with everything he identified here. And I'm going to just quickly cut through. So there's the smaller structure that's in front of the house. And then here is a picnic bench. It's possible this dark block here in front of the house is this picnic bench. It seems like the best candidate, and I agree with him on that point. Then we've also got this very distinct white fence going around the house, and B flat suggested that's probably what this band of white is here. Again, I think that makes sense. And then finally, there's this kind of fuzzy lighter section here, which he identifies as this beach here with all of these logs. To me, all of that makes sense, and I'm bringing it up because what we're not seeing is, you know, it's all pretty clear, reasonably clear. We're not getting a lot of ambiguity in there. We do seem to see, well, there's a water line down here, and whether we're seeing all the way down to the water line or not is hard to say. It's, you know, it's a fuzzy line. According to the Earth curve calculator, I put in a path, so from Dinkman Mill, the observation point, to Point Robinson, that's 8.75 miles. And I put that into the Earth curve calculator. And at 8.75 miles, we get about 5.5 feet of hidden with normal standard refraction. Standard refraction, 5.7 feet hidden. And whether or not we've got that in this image here, I'm not prepared to say. I think it's possible there's a bit of hidden. I don't know if it's that much or less. Let's just look in a little bit further. We can see that the picnic table, which is right here, is on a kind of grassy area, which appears to be up a few feet, and then all these logs are piled up against it. And then the beach continues to slope out from there. So this area up here is certainly raised up somewhat from these from this beach. Anyway, I don't need to spend more time on that. I just wanted to point those images out because they're relevant to the next thing he brings up in his video, which is at about 9 minutes in. He's focusing now on this house on the distant shore, which I had mentioned, and he took a still frame from Bobby's video and zoomed into it in much more closely in order to see a little better what's going on there. And so we see the house. Let me go to that house on Google Earth here, and that house is now 11.2 miles from our observation point, and it's this house right here. I had mentioned that in my previous video, pointed out this rather simple roof line and this wall, which seems to be what we see here and below it. And then we have the water line right there, whereas on Google Earth, it's apparent that we've got, you know, a certain distance, we're a certain height above the water line up here. And that, all of that doesn't seem to show in this image here. I'm editing in a little bit more here. I meant to say a little bit more about this area. I was looking at it, you know, more closely, and I was noticing that there's this whole section below the main floor of this house. This house actually seems to be built up on a basement level, and that basement is fully exposed on the side here, and might even be a garage door, you know, a 7-foot high garage door down here. I don't know if they're actually using it as a garage, but it looks like it's a full height basement and that it opens to the ground level on the side here. So we're seeing the front, I'll call this the lakefront of the house, as a kind of dark single-story wall. When you come around to the side, there's another whole level below that, of a good 7 or 8 feet. In front of that, right down here where I'm circling the mouse, we see a couple of cars, or a car and a minivan parked there. So there's a driveway coming down. There's cars, minivans, more driveway. That suggests that, you know, we're looking at 7 or 8 feet here, and then it comes all the way down. We've got this retaining wall. I should think it's at least 16 feet from the bottom of this wall, 15 feet from the bottom of this wooden wall, or the top of the white wall here, down to the water. And we're not seeing anything like this in that image. We're not seeing anything like that in this whole area here. See the gable end of the house, we see the dark wall, but there seems to be another, basically another whole level below that. So I guess that's the end of this little insert. I wanted to just clarify, you know, the extent of what we're not seeing in that distant view. One other point I think I'll make while I'm doing this. Now, this is something that I think B-flat may already know. I wouldn't be surprised. He seems to be paying a lot more attention than other flat earthers and seems to have a much better understanding of the globe model, and seems to understand that, you know, the drop with distance increases dramatically the farther you go. So if we went back to the Earth curve calculator at 8 3/4 miles, which would be from our observation point to Point Robinson, we're seeing a drop of about 5.5 feet at 8 3/4 miles. We only have to go another 2.5 miles to get to that distant shore where the other house is, and now we're looking at a more than 17-foot drop. So due to the sphere geometry, it's not just dropping as it goes out with distance, it's dropping faster and faster the farther out you go. So it's about 5.5 foot of drop to Point Robinson, but then now no more than 10 feet of drop beyond that, just in another 2.5 miles, 2 1/4 miles. Anyway, that I just wanted to insert this little bit here. I think it might really emphasize the point. Now this is where I kind of start to disagree with B-flat here. He's saying that there's mirage happening, and that this mirage is possibly obscuring or hiding the stuff underneath, behind it. Now, I really don't think that there's much, if any, mirage happening, possibly a little bit. I put this into Photoshop, and I added some guidelines. The upper two guidelines, well, let me turn those off. Take the words, the tote letters here, and then about halfway between the bottom of the letters and the water line, there's a very faint white line going horizontally across. So I put these two guidelines in. One of them is on that white line and the other is at the water line. If there's mirage in this picture, that's as much of it as I can concede there of seeing. If we look right here, it's possible we're getting a little mirroring right in here. Right in there. So I could say that, yeah, I might be able to agree that much of this image is mirage. But is that a wide enough band to effectively hide all that other stuff that we're seeing in front of this house? This terrace, this little seawall here, the beach coming down? I don't think so. And I want to add that if it is a mirage, and it's hiding all of that, then the roof of this house would be mirrored, and we would be seeing the roof down here. Turn those off again, and I'm going to turn on I just drew in a few little lines there to kind of block out and make it a little more clear where the house, the edges of the house. So B flat, I just don't see that mirage happening. Another problem I have with it is I don't see any of that happening at Point Robinson at all. Again, perhaps a very small amount at that earlier point in your video. Perhaps that is right through here. Right in here. So it may be that it's influencing a little bit of that base sort of beach area. I just don't see that that's enough to hide everything that's missing from the base of the wall of the first floor all the way down to the water line. I think that's all I'm going to address in my response. I'm probably not going to be able to get back to this for a week or two because I've got a lot happening in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully other people will pick up the ball here and carry it forward. I think it's an interesting little exercise, and B flat is a nice person to engage with. He seems to be respectful and sincere in what he's doing. I think Bobby Shafto is probably going to have a lot to say as well. Anyhow, that's all for now. I hope you found this interesting, worth your time. Look forward to seeing you all again soon. Bye-bye.